Good morning. Good morning. I'm Þórdís, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Iceland. Happy to be here this morning, and we had an excellent talks last night. And this meeting this morning will be hopefully fruitful and important because we here have a cooperation that is extremely important, and especially now during the times we live, and it's symbolic and strong to be here in Tallinn, in Estonia. We will naturally and of course discuss continued support to Ukraine, but also, I assume, the development overall and in our region, and therefore the cooperation, the JEF, is very important for us here and for our friends and allies as well. Thank you. I'll go here.
We are just waiting for other guests right now. It takes a few minutes, so a moment.
Good morning. This is a little bit intimidating, but nevertheless. Good morning, everyone. I really look forward to our JEF meeting. This is a very useful format. as one could see and feel yesterday at dinner. I think the starting point here today is that we're going to be talking about Ukraine. And I have two observations about that. There's a lot of talk about peace negotiations and ceasefires, and I welcome those discussions. But let's focus on the essential. Ukraine needs to win this war first. Before we can start talking about peace or a ceasefire, we need to continue to support Ukraine. And the support needs to be very practical. It basically means arms and ammunition so that Ukraine can win this war on the battlefield. Once we get into the negotiations, and the time is not there yet, we need to stick to three very important principles. The first one is the principle of independence. The second one is the principle of territorial integrity. And the third one is the principle of sovereignty. And believe me, as a Finn, we know what we're talking about, because after the Winter War and the War of Continuation, we gained our independence, but we lost territorial integrity and we lost sovereignty. We must make sure that this does not happen with Ukraine. Ukraine needs to retain its territorial integrity and it needs to retain its sovereignty. Ukraine must be able to decide for itself whether it wants to join the European Union and or NATO. Our position is very clear. Ukraine is European. Having said all of that, we, in the negotiations, clearly have two phases. The first one is a ceasefire. But in order for the ceasefire to take place, Ukraine must begin from a position of strength. And only after that, and of course with security guarantees as well, and only after that do we get into a situation when peace negotiations can begin. We're in this for the long haul, a lot of things happening, but we will continue to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. My absolutely final point, for all of us Europeans and for all of those who abide by international law, please understand that this war is about more than just Ukraine. It is about European security. And at the end of the day, the choice is between Yalta and Helsinki. And by that I mean to say that in Yalta, it was the big states who carved up European security, whereas in Helsinki, we did it based on international law. These are the reasons we need to continue to support Ukraine. Thank you very much.
Do you see a need for the peacekeeping or possibility in the future? Or do you
we should not go ahead of ourselves. We have to remember that peacekeeping missions are very often based on international law, which means that there's a mandate coming from the United Nations and that there's a clear peace settlement. We don't want to get into a situation that the United States was in Libya in 1982 when they put peacekeepers on the ground and then there was collateral damage and suddenly they withdrew. So we should not get ahead of ourselves. So we'll see what happens on that front.
What is your message to Russia and the Russians?
Withdraw. Anything else? Thank you.
Yes, good morning. Hello, everyone. At first, let me thank Estonians for organizing this meeting. It's 10th year, but the third time when in a prime ministers and presidents level, we coordinate such a meeting, and this is good because we can coordinate our region's interests in a much better way, because here is represented Baltic states, so Baltic Sea countries, high North countries and North Atlantic. So those issues are very common in all those regions. Those countries represent 10 NATO countries which spend more than 2% or at least 2% for their defense expenditures. So we are as well those countries who are a loud voice and voice who represents as well needs what Ukraine needs. Therefore, if we are coordinating our policies for deterrence and defense as well against Russia and Belarus, we are better coordinated. We have our united common message, and it gives us a better platform how we can defend ourselves as well. So today we will probably discuss how we can help even more for Ukraine, how we can make more operable JEF format as such, because our armies has trained together, and these operative measures can give us better understanding what else we need to do for JEF to be used as a platform for defending our countries in a much better way. Thank you.
What is your message to the Russians?
Those countries in this region are united. We are strong. We are spending as much as is needed for our region to be defended, to be strong in our policies as well. And we will be the platform which can prepare ourselves for any obstacle if such comes. We understand that Russia is not predictable, and we have to be prepared for that. Thank you.
What about Ukrainian deep strikes into Russia?
So I'm really glad to be here with the friends. CHEP is a format of like-minded countries. Many of them are the frontline countries, including my country, Lithuania. So we understand, as nobody else, how important it is to take our defense issues seriously, how important it is to increase the defense spending. We plan for the next year 3.5% of our GDP dedicated to the defense. And of course the tasks are even more ambitious because according to our plans we have to establish national division fully equipped with all enablers until 2030. For that we need even a higher level of defense for 4.5% of our GDP. Of course, this is a very important task to achieve that we all are on the same page, I mean the NATO allies. So this is the reason why we have to push and to encourage our partners to do the same, to increase the floor for defense spending from 2%. We agreed on that in Vilnius summit, but taking into account the new situation, geopolitical realities, we have to increase the spending at least up to 3% of GDP. Of course, it would make also positive impact to United States administration, and for us, transatlantic bond and strengthening of transatlantic bond is a very important priority. That's it from my side, and of course we have to support Ukraine because now Russia feels to be the strongest side, taking the initiative on the battlefield. And this is the reason why it would be extremely difficult to bring Russia to the negotiations table if the situation on the battlefield will not change. Hopefully, with our dedication and our commitment, it is possible to change the momentum on the battlefield to the better direction, and then, of course, to start to talk about possible solutions and peaceful negotiations on the peace. So this is actually the moments which are extremely important for my country, and we look forward to cooperate with our partners in the future. Thank you.
Good morning. It's great to be here this morning on behalf of the Netherlands. I think it's very timely that we have this JEF meeting, that we have this discussion, because first and foremost, we see that the situation in Ukraine is deteriorating, and we need to make sure that we scale up and speed up our efforts to militarily support Ukraine. And whatever is happening at diplomatic tables, we need to make sure that Ukraine is as strong as possible, has a strong position, and is able to negotiate from a position of strength rather than be pressured from a position of weakness. Second, we need to do more to bolster our defense and our deterrence. We see that Russia is only increasing its military production, and if you look at all the projections for the upcoming years, it's only going up. And we know that Russia's imperial ambitions are going beyond Ukraine, are going beyond the territory that they conquered. And we know that this aggression will come back in the future, either in Ukraine or directed at NATO territory. So we need to further strengthen our defense and deterrence. And finally, we see that there's a lot of talk about potential negotiations. And it's important that we are united as European countries, because it's not only about Ukraine, it's also about our security architecture and our future security. So we need to make sure that within the EU, within NATO, we are united, and therefore meetings like these are extremely important.
What can the Coalition do to disrupt and deter the Russian shadow fleet?
I think we need to do two things. So one, we need to further bolster our military capabilities. What we see now is that countries are spending more, are investing more, but that's taking too long. And also the capability and the capacity of our industry, of our defense companies, are too limited. It's taking too much time to deliver more military equipment, so we need to make sure that we increase our industrial capacity. Second, we see a lot of hybrid activities from Russia. Also in the Netherlands, we experience cyber attacks, sabotage, espionage on a daily basis. And we also need to make sure that we are resilient against that and that we have clear answers, because we should avoid any disruption of our society, because of course that's the goal of Russia, to disrupt our unity, to disrupt our societies, and we need to make sure that we have a clear answer to that.
What is needed that security guarantees given to Ukraine in the future are credible? Who can give the security guarantees?
That's something we need to discuss. Of course, there are different scenarios, different options, but I think we need to make sure that we make a clear distinction between a ceasefire and any form of durable peace. Of course, a ceasefire can be relatively easy, but to make sure that you have durable peace with credible deterrence and with sufficient security guarantees, of course, that's more complicated. And it's not, there are no easy answers, and therefore it's so important that we have meetings like these in order to exchange views.
What is Netherlands' answer for defense spending or defense?
Yes, so we are reaching the 2% now this year. We also are close to setting this in our law, so not only in our budget but also to have this 2% as a minimum in our law. At this point, we are growing very fast. We went from around 1.4% to 2% in just a few years. And in this fast growth, it's now quite difficult for me actually to spend the full 2%, because I've ordered a lot of weapon systems. I try to hire new military people, but it's taking more time than I would like to see. And that's why I also made my remark about the industrial capacity that we need to increase. So at this point, we as the Netherlands, I'm working on a daily basis to make sure we spend the 2%. But regarding the future, we have all seen the remarks by Secretary General of NATO saying that we need more capabilities for our defense and deterrence. So in the upcoming months, we will have further discussions about any potential new target. Of course, we will organize the NATO summit in The Hague in June. I can imagine it's also going to be an important topic, and therefore it's good that we have discussions like these. But so far, as the Dutch government, we haven't set any new targets yet. We need to discuss this within NATO today at the GEF maybe as well. And then in the upcoming months, we will probably come with our position.
What about the Russian shadow fleet? What steps could be taken by you and others to disrupt it?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's very good that the EU yesterday announced further steps in order to avoid the current function of the shadow fleet. I think it's very concerning. I think in general any mechanisms that Russia and others are using to circumvent sanctions are very concerning, and we need to find new ways in order to tackle that. I think the measures that were announced yesterday were very good. So we can be more strict when it comes to this shadow fleet. And also put more pressure on it, because we see now that this is a source of income of Russia, and that's something that we should be able to tackle. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here on behalf of Norway. It's my second visit to Tallinn in less than a year. And this is an important venue for a group of countries that have a lot to achieve together. So I appreciate the Estonian government having brought us together in GEF. We have important discussions on how we as a group in NATO coordinate our defense efforts in this regional Baltic, Northern European, Arctic setting. And at the same time, obviously, it is Ukraine that is on top of our agenda. And we are like-minded countries in our support to Ukraine. The Nordic-Baltic group is the leading contributor to defense in Ukraine, Ukraine's legitimate defense, both in terms of military support and also economic support to their other humanitarian and civil efforts. So I'm very happy to be here for this meeting.
Mr. Prime Minister, is the CEF more credible, more effective than NATO if something really bad happens?
They are not two different things. NATO is the treaty, and it's the guarantee we have to be in an alliance of solidarity. It's a stronger alliance now than 5 or 10 years ago. We are 31 members with updated regional plans, updated command structure. So I don't see this as two different things. I see that JEF is coordination among regional partners in this part of Europe. So we have to see them together.
What is your message to Russia?
Well, the message to Russia is that the war in Ukraine should end. And it can end quickly if Russia is stopping its aggression. This is a devastating war, killing people, destroying parts of Ukraine. And we have to be very clear on that. This is a breach by a member of the Security Council of so many chapters in the UN Charter. So this is the message. And the other message is that we will stand firm in supporting Ukraine and that countries in Europe should come together and secure the right of every country, small or big, to live in security. And Russia has to contribute to that and not be a spoiler as of now.
How do you see the problems with the shadow fleet in the Baltic Sea? Norway is at the moment not contributing on your agreement you published yesterday. What will Norway do in that matter?
Oh, we have a very focused work now in many different settings to limit and to restrict this phenomenon of a shadow fleet. These are ships now transporting Russian oil under either no insurance or under critical insurance systems, bypassing sanctions and causing environmental danger. So Norway, being a maritime nation, is really working hard in this setting, in Nordic Baltic setting, in the IOM setting, to limit and to restrict that phenomenon.
Can you imagine that someone should board a Russian oil tanker from the Grey Fleet?
Well, I mean, there is a basic principle in the maritime legislation that you have free passage of ships. So that will have to be if the coastal state has the right suspicion or see that there is infringement on laws, that you have to board to inspect. And there are rules to follow here, but I believe we need to cooperate to see how we can strengthen those rules and regulations to, again, to limit and restrict this very dangerous phenomenon.
What about the permission of Ukrainian deep strikes into Russia?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Deep strikes into Russia.
Well, Norway's position has been that Ukraine has a right to defend itself, and we expect that they will defend themselves according to the basic rules of international law. You have the right to defend yourself against aggression. Full stop. Okay, thank you.
Well, good morning. It's great to be back in Tallinn again. I strongly remember my very first meetings in this beautiful town, late 80s, in another universe, basically. But now we're back in serious times again, and it's extremely relevant to meet in this format. The very first JEF meeting when all the partners in JEF also are formal allies in NATO. So it gives an extra flavor to this meeting. Well, the topics are very obvious: the support to Ukraine, of course, but also the even closer neighborhood, the shadow fleet in the Baltic Sea. A lot of efforts are being made right now, and as you know, we agreed yesterday on increasing our efforts to really stop those vessels that provide a serious threat in different ways for our country. So I look forward to today's discussions. That's it.
Should JEF nations have a defense spending goal of 3%?
Well, most of the countries, well, all of us are rapidly increasing our defense spendings, including Sweden, as you know. I think we are all above 2%, obviously. Sweden is heading for 2.4 next year, 2.6 the years after that. And we consider 2% as a floor, basically, not limiting at all the further increase in the Swedish defense spendings. We don't have a joint figure. I would say 2.5 would honestly be too little to have as a figure, since we are all of us are exceeding that or on our way to exceed that. So, but I think the discussion shows that we are all taking it very seriously, and obviously those countries not yet in NATO reaching the 2% formally target, they will rapidly have to do so.
What is your message to Russia, and does Sweden still have a plan to give just Gripen firefighters to Ukraine?
Well, the message to Russia is the same as previously, obviously. We will support Ukraine as long as it takes. We all want peace. It needs to be peace through strength. We all want negotiations, but it needs to be negotiations on Ukrainian conditions. And to make that possible, Ukraine needs to have a very, very strong position when you enter these discussions. That was the obvious topics for yesterday evening's discussions. Regarding Gripen, we are doing exactly what we told Ukraine and the F-16 coalition half a year ago, that we are supporting the F-16 coalition. We are deploying to surveillance aircrafts to Ukraine, which actually increases the capabilities of the F-16s quite significantly. We are not ruling out at all deploying Gripens as well. But we agreed at that time that to deploy two different systems at the same time was simply not a good idea, and that we have agreed with together with the other partners as well.
Prime Minister, since you are sharing the belt between Sweden and Denmark with Denmark, are there any bilaterals on how you're going to do the follow-up in practice?
Sorry, on what?
On the shadow fleet.
Ah, yeah.
To inspect.
Yeah, well,
the ships?
as you know, there are obvious limitations to what we can do according to international law and I don't know the sea, the legislation, but still we are increasing our efforts to demand more clearly that every vessel needs to be insured and to safeguard that they also confirm these insurances is a significant step to also to follow them more closely and to share the information between countries so we can follow them extremely closely. I think it's simply totally unacceptable for these countries or this country to use the shadow fleet not only to increase their income to benefit the war, but also to put countries at risk for obvious risks in this way. So we are increasing our efforts right now, and the message to Russia is we will not stop until they stop with these shadow fleets.
But is there something that you can do to stop the shadow fleet? You really can stop it?
Well, we are firmly behind the international order on freedom of navigation. So there are limitations, but there are also limitations to what we can accept for Russia to do. So the steps we're taking right now are necessary. Well, thank you so much.
Good morning. Very good to see you and very good to be here for this important JEF meeting. JEF is now 10 years old and slightly bigger than it was when we started, but it is more than proved its worth. And we have the chance today to have important strategic discussions on matters of mutual concern and interest, and Ukraine will be amongst those. We had a good informal discussion last night about our perspectives, and so today is a real chance to take that together with our allies and share our thinking and share our development of ideas as we go forward. But Jeff has more than proved its worth. A very, very important meeting, so very, very pleased to be here. Thank you.
Prime Minister, could you please comment on the killing of the Russian top general in Moscow today?
I would ask whether the United Kingdom is prepared to increase defense spending to the 3% of GDP, and whether it considers it realistic to reach an agreement of 2.5%, or at least to reach the prerequisites for that we are in Tallinn.
Thank you very much for that.
Apologies. Thank you very much for that question. And the starting point here is the first duty of all governments, including my government, is obviously the safety and security of our people, national security. And that's why we're having this important discussion. The world is more volatile now than it has been for some time. And that's why we made a big commitment to defence spending in the budget that we passed just a few weeks ago. And we will set out a pathway to 2.5% in due course. So it is an important commitment. And today is an opportunity to discuss with our allies not just the question of budgets, but also the question of how we cooperate, coordinate together, make effective use of the capability that we all have. And so I'm very much looking forward to that. Thank you very much.
Hello, good morning everybody. I'll be brief because the schedule is quite tight already. Thank you for coming to Tallinn. Thanks for everybody, all the leaders here. Jeff meeting has already brought some results. Yesterday we agreed to double down on Russia's shadow fleet, which is like a money train running, bringing them fresh cash to wage war in Ukraine and do harm to other democratic countries. Today's topics obviously will be Ukraine, how to assist more, how to put the Ukraine in a position of strength to make Russia behind the table asking for the negotiations. And also the topic about how to increase our defense capabilities, what can we do, what is the interoperability between the countries. So these will be the topics, and there will be a press conference later, so I'll be very brief. Thank you.